The White House has fired the Inspector General for the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID. While it's typically an Inspector General who conducts investigations and audits into potential fraud and waste of a government department, it was DOJ who put the spotlight over USAID, criticizing its spending of millions of U.S. dollars on what the Trump administration has called causes aligned with left-wing ideologies around the globe. Paul Martin's removal as USAID's Inspector General comes just one day after his office released a report criticizing President Trump's freeze on foreign aid. The now former IG had published a report Tuesday suggesting the spending freeze and efforts to cut USAID's staffing had created confusion over what programs could continue and what employees could continue working. Martin suggested the confusion had made it more difficult for the agency to track over $8 billion being spent overseas in humanitarian missions. The IG's report stated new directives from the State Department has significantly impacted USAID's capacity to disperse and safeguard its humanitarian assistance programming. Specifically, USAID's existing oversight controls, albeit with previously identified shortcomings, are now largely non-operational given these recent directives and personnel actions. The Inspector General linked a USAID report from July 2024 in its comment regarding previously identified shortcomings. It's a report detailing a lack of safeguards in place to ensure USAID funding going into Gaza and the Middle East doesn't end up in the hands of terror groups. The Inspector General noted 2 organizations given USAID funds that were accused of failure to disclose past connections to the terror groups Hezbollah and Hamas. The DOJ sued, and the 2 organizations settled the cases. The Trump administration ordered a freeze of all federal funding being spent on foreign aid, calling for a review of the money and demanding it must align with American interests. That order is being fought in the courts. It coincides with recent shakeups at USAID, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio taking over the agency. While Martin's report points out that immediate waivers had allowed essential USAID programs to continue through the foreign aid freeze, the Inspector General noted food assistance shipments had been delayed over staff confusion and at risk of spoilage. Paul Martin is one of nearly 20 inspectors general to be ousted by the Trump administration. Marco Rubio suggested in a letter to lawmakers USAID could be abolished after its reorganization over the coming days. However, the administration is facing an uphill battle in the courts as unions fight to keep the jobs of USAID employees. Thanks for watching our news update. USAID has faced major political scrutiny in the first few weeks of Trump's second term. In this week's episode of Bias Breakdown, we examine how media coverage over USAID spending widely differs between left and right-leaning news outlets. To learn more about the podcast, download our mobile app or visit us online at san.com.